Over the past 6 years, I had a chance to work with around 30 different universities from all over the world, from Europe to Latin America, from the United States to Africa, and I was in touch with many more of them. We were collaborating on innovation projects for large manufacturing companies. I was working with teams that focus on polymers, on electrochemistry, materials, recycling, food, and other fields. And today I want to share some thoughts about working with universities, because I know that large companies want to work with them, small companies want to work with them, startups, medium companies, they want to collaborate with universities because they have knowledge and technologies that can help companies innovate and improve their products. Hello everyone, my name is Lisa and welcome to my channel. I spent 5 years organizing collaborative university competitions for world well-known companies to solve their extreme innovation challenges, and now I continue my journey with the goal to foster innovation by helping different companies collaborate and co-create. On this channel, I explore collaboration projects for innovation management, share my experience in managing such projects and processes, and uncover strategies for making collaboration efforts more effective. In this video, I want to share what you need to keep in mind if you want to work with academia for your project, whether it's going to be an innovation project or you just want to get in touch with them to work with their students. There are so many details when it comes to collaborating with universities. So I want to start with some general information that you might want to know if you decide to do a project together with the academic partner. So you have this project in mind and you feel like you need to involve a university in it. Where do you start? And the very first thing that I want to mention is that you don't want to work with a particular university. You want to work with a particular team, a professor or professors, because they are the ones that have this knowledge, that have this technology that your company might need. And this is what you need. You need to look for a person, you need to look for people and not for an organization. Because unfortunately, I know that even large companies might still make this mistake. They're going for top 100 universities, they are going for well-known universities. They're choosing partners based on many different criteria, many factors, but the right ones. So based on my experience, and it's just my personal opinion, it's better to look for a professor, it's better to look for a team or like a particular person within this team that has this knowledge that you might need. And here, even if you are not looking for a particular technology, if you are not going to conduct an innovation project, but you just want to collaborate with the university because you want to work with their students and you want to be exposed to their students, I do believe it's still better to find a professor, a particular person, like a lecturer in this university, and talk to them and try to collaborate with them. It's going to be easier, and this person will understand what you are trying to do and what you're trying to offer much better than the administration of this university will. Now, there is another part of universities that should kind of be a bridge between academia and industry, and this part is called technology transfer offices. The role of these organizations, not really organizations, but they are parts of universities, is to transfer knowledge from academia to industry and manage intellectual property, like including patents and some legal questions. So they should be looking for the industry partners for universities. Now, let me be honest here. I have never really worked with technology transfer offices. I was in touch with them regarding intellectual property, regarding some legal agreements, but it was never like, oh, let me find a technology transfer office because I need to find a team for this polymer challenge. It was never like that. I probably got in touch and I probably tried to text them and get in contact when I was losing faith to get in touch with the professor I really wanted to work with. But yeah, it was maybe one case out of dozens, so it was not that often, and I don't think that I was successful at that time. Also, from my conversations with industry experts, including my interviews, I know that technology transfer offices are not always good in collaboration, so I don't really think that you need to focus on them. Again, it's better to find a professor, it's better to find like a person who has the knowledge that you need. And here I don't want to blame technology transfer offices. I just really find the idea of having such organizations within academia strange, because basically academia does not really need collaboration and they're not really interested in transferring knowledge from the university to the industry. So it feels strange, you know? So what is really important is to understand the mindset of people in academia, of people you will try to reach out, of these professors, or I don't know, sometimes it might be postdocs and sometimes PhD students even. But you need to understand what is important to them. What are they looking for? How do they work? So that you can make them interested in working with you. In general, as one of my interviews mentioned, and I do hope that the interview with you will be on the channel soon, academia doesn't really need the industry for collaboration projects. They are focused on education, they have their own projects, they have their own funding. You know, they are doing just fine in that sense, and they don't need to think about producing large quantities of products. They don't need to worry about making money. They don't need to think about optimizing manufacturing processes. They can just create and enjoy their creative projects, something that they are really interested in, and if they have the budget for it, of course. But yeah, that's what they do. So how can you, coming from the industry, make them interested in what you need, in what you are doing? And you know, I believe there are a few incentives. Maybe there are more. I'm still discovering it. And if there's anyone from academia watching this video, just please let me know what other incentives might interest you. Let's just start. And the very first one, I do believe it's a financial incentive, of course, because collaboration projects, they cost money for the company. And let's be honest here, experts from academia are not always as well paid as researchers in the industry. And I know it worries some PhD students when they are choosing their career path, especially in some countries, especially in some fields, because obviously some topics are more popular and they have more funding, and people working on these projects, they're probably less interested in getting like some money from the industry. Also, rich developed countries have more opportunities to invest in fundamental science. So yeah, I do believe that still like this financial incentive is something that can make a difference for a researcher. And here also different universities, they deal with this commission differently, because I know that some universities, they allow their staff, their professors to have full commission for themselves for the project that they have with the industry. I know such cases. It's rare, and usually, of course, the university is going to take at least a part of this commission. Obviously, in the first case scenario, when the university professor, when the researcher gets the whole commission, they will be more motivated. Here, from my experience, teams from smaller universities, from universities located in less developed countries, of course, they are more interested in financial rewards, which is, in my opinion, is totally fine. And I honestly wish everyone in academia could be well paid. The next incentive that is going to work for any researcher in any country is, of course, publications. And this is something that they want. Any researcher wants to have a publication in acclaimed journals. So how do you use it? You can think about how your project, how the data from this project, knowledge from this project could help the researcher to get this publication, to get published in a recognized journal. This is something that you can think of, and this is something that you can offer to them. I do believe that this incentive is also something that small companies and startups could use, because obviously they don't have big budgets for collaboration projects, for R&D projects. So this is something that they can try to use if they want to approach and then if they want to find an academic partner. So here you just need to think about which information the academic researcher could get from your project. And when you think about it, when you think about what you could offer, you need to, of course, carefully study their research interests and their other publications, what they're working on. And based on that, you can think, oh yeah, like this information or knowledge from this project could be really useful to them, and this is something that I could offer. But I will be talking about this. I will be talking about publications and research interests in the next more practical video. The next incentive is, I really didn't know how to call it, so I just called it an interesting project. You know, I do really believe that it's difficult to find more passionate people than scientists, than researchers. They're naturally curious about their topics, about their fields. So it's just natural that they might get interested in working on your project because this project might spark their curiosity, you know? I don't think that this is something that you can just mention in the first message to them. You cannot say, hey, like, I do believe this project is really interesting for you. Please, would you accept our offer to collaborate? But I'm just mentioning because I believe that it is important to approach different researchers and different professors that might have what you need, might have this knowledge, this technology that you need. And do not skip some well-known universities because you might think, oh yeah, like, but this professor, he might not even be interested to work with such a small company. They might actually be interested in it just because your project might naturally interest them. They just might get curious about your project and they would be excited to work with you. Despite the fact I always suggest to look for smaller, more applied universities. But again, like, if you just see that this particular person, this particular professor, they have what you're looking for, just connect, you know, try to talk about it, try to talk about your project and try to see their reaction on your project. Again, it might be just the case that even if you don't have a large budget for this particular collaboration project, you might get a great team, a great professor from your area. And personally, I also believe that even kind of boring incremental innovations that big industry players are usually focused on, they might be very interesting. Now, the next incentive that I'd like to mention is long-term partnership. And this is just another motivational factor for some teams to work with you. In general, research projects, they may last different time, and some of them last for years and some of them last for just a couple of months, but they might have continuation later. And of course, companies rarely have only one project. They should constantly innovate. So this is a good chance to establish long-term partnership. And I do believe that this incentive is quite important because it's just great to have a long-term partner who you could trust and work with, because once you have this like one project and you work with this team and you feel like you can trust them, they can trust you, you build this foundation, and trust is extremely important. It's one of the most important things when it comes to innovation projects. Again, here, just like anything in our life, a lot depends on context. Of course, if you're just a small company or just a startup and you're trying to approach like a large university in your area, like a well-known university, or not even in your area, just in general, then I don't think it does make sense to go with this incentive straight away and say, hey, like, we can have this long-term partnership. Obviously, it would be strange, and I don't think the university would agree with it. But again, with smaller and more applied universities, it's always a good option, and they're usually quite interested to have this long-term partnership. Also, some big companies send their R&D experts to universities as professors or lecturers to teach students, which I believe is an amazing thing. It's also a sort of a long-term partnership, and it might have many benefits for both parties, because students, they have a chance to learn more about how things are going in the industry, and R&D experts, they also get this access to the university and to the teams in these universities and to its students. Again, I believe here, depending on context, depending on who you are and which R&D experts you have in your company, this might be an option also in some cases. The next incentive that I want to mention is exposure to other industry players. Also, just like having this long-term partnership when you're able to conduct a number of projects, this incentive might be also very good for some university teams, because basically you are offering additional opportunities for this team to have more research projects, to have more budgeting, more financial support, to have basically further development of the topic they are working on. Again, here a lot depends on the context. If you have this opportunity, if you really have these connections with other industry players, it's amazing. This is something that I believe you can use in your approach. But again, if you don't have it, just don't mention it and yeah, use other incentives. But obviously big brands, they do have an advantage here, but I believe that they have an advantage in general. So another incentive that I'd like to mention here is the place to work for PhD students. This is not something that any company can offer. And again, like if you're a small company, maybe it's not a good idea to start with this one. But in general, it's something that universities need. They need to have a place for their PhD students to work after they graduate, because not everyone, not every PhD student is going to stay in academia. They also need to go to the industry. And if the university, if like the professor that you're talking to, they know that you can offer them these places, I'm sure they might be more interested to collaborate with you. Now, there is one more incentive that I want to mention here, and it is connected to intellectual property. At the end of the project, when we're talking about collaboration between academia and industry, companies usually would like to keep intellectual property, would like to keep patents, which is totally fine. It's totally normal. They need it. You need to be ready to pay more in such cases if you want to keep this intellectual property in your company. But from this, we can have another incentive. I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say you have a project at the end of which you developed a material that is going to be used in your products, and you want to patent protect this material. And of course, you are paying for this. But what you can do and what you can agree on with the university is that you are protecting using this material only in the area you operate in. That means that, for example, you're going to use this material only for the product that you produce, and you're not going to touch any other areas, any other industries. That leaves an opportunity for the university to also patent protect this material for usage in other fields, in other areas, and that leaves them a chance to work with other companies in these other areas. They're not going to be competitors of yours, but they still could use this material that the university developed for their own products in completely different areas. And this might be quite a good incentive actually, especially in some cases, because not all universities, and I believe that actually nobody is usually happy when you're trying to get the intellectual property rights for yourself and not leave them anything. So yeah, I believe that it might be quite a good incentive for your academic partner. I also want to quickly touch this point, but I'm going to talk about it in the next more practical video. But when it comes to looking for university research partners, a lot depends on the area of your project. And here, as I mentioned, there might be very popular and very trendy areas, like for example anything connected to sustainability nowadays, recycling, biodegradable, bio-based materials. Also, batteries are quite popular, and some other areas. It might be quite difficult to find a research partner here, especially when it comes to universities located in Europe, in the United States. I believe like with Asia, like with China, I believe it might be easier still. But yeah, because in most cases, these research teams, they might already have other projects from the government, projects they are doing with your competitors sometimes and with other companies. So they might not be able to work with you. So you just need to be aware of that and allocate enough time to find the right team. Also, this might be the case sometimes with very niche topics. I remember, for example, a project when we needed to find a team that is focused on capacitors, and it was so difficult to do. It was very difficult to find because everyone is focused on some other areas. So yeah, it took us some time. And here regarding this, I just again want to mention that don't be afraid to be more open-minded and work with university teams in other locations, in other countries, sometimes on the other side of the world. Of course, it is easier to work with someone who is close to you, who you can just take for lunch or a dinner and meet offline and meet the team offline, because it's easier to build trust. But if you have this chance to organize a business trip to another country and meet the team, the university team there, just do it and don't be afraid to find universities there. Again, I've been working with absolutely different teams, and I was working with teams from Europe and I was working with teams from Asia. And here I'm not talking about like Japan and China, I'm talking about some other Asian countries. I was working with outstanding universities from Latin America, and I was working with a team from Africa that prepared absolutely brilliant, very interesting proposal with promising technologies. So I know what I'm talking about. Like, there are talented people everywhere. You might open the whole new world for you, the whole new world with new knowledge and new technologies you might not be aware of. So yeah, I believe that those are the very basics that I wanted to share with you. And again, there will be another video. It's going to be more practical, and I will be talking about how I am looking for universities, where I'm looking for them, and it's not always the most obvious places actually, which emails I use, and how to come up with like messages that you can use to approach the university teams you are interested in. And of course, I'm gonna talk about how to choose the right candidate, what you should pay attention to when you are choosing them, some legal questions, we will cover them as well. I hope to see you next time, and have a good day. Bye!